Hey everyone, this is a quick video on the big issue of cheesecake cracking. I've made a lot of cheesecakes over the last couple years and it always tastes really good, but there's something about the way that it aesthetically looks, and when there's this big fat crack across the middle, it just drives me crazy. I know you can cover it with some topping or anything or something like that, but when you go to Cheesecake Factory and you look in that refrigerator and you see these silky smooth cheesecakes, I was just wondered, how do they do that? So I've done some experiments recently, I've done some research, and I've found some solutions. So there's 4 big reasons as to why the cheesecake might crack, and so I'm going to give you some quick tips on what you can do to avoid that. I think that they're all just as equally important to use together. I don't think one is more important than the other, so the order that I'm going to address them in doesn't make a difference, but I highly recommend paying close attention to all 4, because if you don't, I think you might end up with a cracked cheesecake. So the first one is the amount of air that is in your batter. Air is going to lead to your cheesecake cracking. As the inside dries out, it's going to make the air want to escape somewhere, and it's going to go through the top. So the number one source of air that's going to go into your cheesecake batter is from the eggs. So it's very important that when you put the eggs into the batter, it's at least for the recipes I've followed, it's the last thing that you do. The cream cheese, the sugar, the vanilla, the sour cream, you can use a hand mixer, or if you have one of the fancy mixers, you can use the electric one for all of that. But once you get to the point of adding the eggs, the batter's smooth enough where you can easily turn them in by hand. So I just used a plastic spatula, and I wouldn't even call it beating. It was more like I slowly turned them in, broke the yolks, just to the point where it was mixed, and stopped. Because if you start beating the batter really fast, then the egg is going to bring air into the batter and your cheesecake is going to crack. So that's step number 1. Softly turn in the eggs. Don't overmix the batter. Number 2, the cake bath method. I don't know if you've heard of it before. There's a lot of talk about it out there. The first time I tried it was tonight, and it seemed to work quite well. The whole idea is you take a larger pan, like a chafing dish like this, and you place your springform into it with your cheesecake, with your crust and your cheesecake already placed into the springform, ready to go into the oven. You put that into the chafing dish, put the chafing dish into the oven, and then you add some water to the bottom of it. I boiled the water so that it was already at a warm temperature close to what the oven would be. And then I put the boiling water into the chafing dish. And so what you do, I'm sorry, I skipped a step. In order to avoid your cheesecake getting ruined from the water, you want to put foil around the springform first. Okay, then you're going to create a little seal there, a block. Then put your cheesecake into the chafing dish. Once your cheesecake's there with the foil around the springform, then you can pour the water. It's going to be protected, but what it's going to do is it's going to create more moisture both within the oven itself and inside the cheesecake as it cooks. So that's going to help you to get a moist cheesecake without any cracks at the top. Number 3, I'm trying to keep this video short, guys. I know I'm going fast. Number 3 is greasing the edges and the bottom of the springform pan. It's, for a lot of people, a given to grease anything that you're going to bake. For me, I've never greased the cheesecake springform before, because the crust itself has so much butter in it that I know it's not going to stick. But the problem is the sides. It doesn't stick badly, but it sticks enough that when the cheesecake is baking, it expands. And then as it starts to cool, it's going to shrink. Now, if you haven't greased the sides of the springform, then as it shrinks, the sides are going to stick to the springform, but the center is going to continue to sink, and then it's going to create a crack in the middle of your cheesecake and not look too good. So grease the sides. It'll also help you to be able to just remove the springform very easily. Before I even ran a knife around the edges, the cheesecake almost came off the sides completely on its own. So I really just barely had to break just a little bit, and it looks very clean, as you'll see in the video there. Number 3, that was number 3. Number 4 is cool the cheesecake very slowly. A drastic change in temperature is the final element that will create a crack in the cheesecake. So in order to cool it as slowly as possible, there's a couple of things that you can do. Certainly don't take it from the oven straight to the fridge. That's the last thing that you want to do. I've heard for some people, bake at a lower temperature. I haven't tried this yet, but bake at a lower temperature and then turn the oven off, and as the oven cools, let the cheesecake cool in the oven, then bring it out to the countertop, and then once it's at room temperature, put it in the refrigerator. So when I have like 18 hours to make a cheesecake, then I'll definitely try that, but for now I haven't tested that method. But at least what you can do is take, maybe open the oven door, let it cool a little bit there for 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, then take your cheesecake bath out of the oven, put it on top of the oven where it's still pretty warm, and let it slowly cool down there. I think I left one of the cheesecakes in there for about a half hour, 45 minutes, still in the bath without removing it. And then finally remove it from the bath, put it on the stovetop. At that point you can remove the foil, maybe wipe some of the grease off the bottom of the pan, let it cool to room temperature, and then put it in the refrigerator overnight. Be careful when you go to remove it from the cheesecake bath, because I think one of my main problems with the crack in the other cheesecake, in the second cheesecake that I did, was removing it too soon. I think that caused a drastic change of temperature, which thus cracked it. The first one that I did, which you'll see here in the video, you can see that there is a crack there, but it's not really from anything other than my knife being, I put my knife in the middle there to test the cheesecake, but that's all. Around the sides it came off clear, as you can see, because of the grease, but in the middle there, that crack is only from the knife. There's no other cracks in the center of the cheesecake. Now if you go to the second video, or the second cheesecake here, you'll see that there is one crack from the knife that's smaller and looks not too bad, but the big crack in the middle, the bigger one rather, I've had bigger cracks before this, the bigger crack happened on its own. I didn't do that. So I think that happened because I took the cheesecake out of the bath too early. So there's a couple of tips. I know that this video, I was hoping I could do this in 3 minutes, but 4 key elements that you have to consider when you're making your cheesecake if you're trying to avoid the cracking, and they're all really important, so I wanted to give a detailed explanation. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'll be happy to answer them, and we'll do another video another time. Have fun.